Andre DeQuisto. I'm the founder of Lone Wolf Portable Tree Stands, Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
All right, well, we got Dan on the line.
And I started thinking, I probably shouldn't have shared those pictures. But
All right, guys, we got Don Higgins on.
Anything that's got to do with chasing big deer, I've got my hands in it somehow. So.
Well, my name's John Eberhardt. The first one that comes to mind was early in my career.
I'm Scott Buckley from Iowa. I had jumped him in the summer, too. He jumped up in that swamp grass down in the bottom lake.
And, that's what I'm doing. I'm chasing it. There ain't nothing stopping me.
Justin Hollandsworth. I'm with Whitetail Addictions and Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
So what are we talking about tonight?
We're talking about the one that got away.
They talked about a deer that you didn't get it done on for some reason. So go ahead and get into the story of the one that got away.
Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming at you with the last episode of the one that got away, guys. We're wrapping up this series. We really hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, we've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed recording these episodes. And we're going to talk to Justin Hollandsworth tonight. This is one of our most favorite, getting kind of well-known but not giant named whitetail hunter out there. And we saved this one last because he's talking about a lot of late-season bucks in this one that he's trying to get done on, making moves late season. So we wanted to save this to where that was kind of more relevant. Much loved, Justin. And we're going to get into the people that make this show possible. We're going to get into the show. Start off with Ride-On Optics. Last time I want to touch on it, guys, I just want to talk about their unlimited lifetime warranty again. This is a veteran-owned and operated company. And a veteran to law enforcement, so that unlimited lifetime warranty, you don't need a code, you don't need a receipt, you don't need anything. You just need a product. Go on their website and say, hey, I got something that's broke or not working. I'm going through a scope issue right now that I wish I had that. That would be very efficient to me.
Yeah, 100%.
So you can find out them at rightonoptics.com.
Yeah, guys, Last Breath TV here. It's been a blast, being a part of the team here this year and seeing everything that happens and what it takes to make the show into what it is for them. And, they're just normal guys like Cody and I are, what you guys love about us so much. And they're the same as us. And it'd be really solid of you to go over there to their YouTube and subscribe and check out a couple of their shows. And I know if you haven't watched them yet and you do that, you'll be blown away and you'll become a fan. So go ahead and head over to YouTube.
All right, I'm going to hit you with the Black Rifle code, guys. Use code Whitetail Legacy to get you 20% off your Black Rifle coffee needs.
Exodus trail cameras. We're getting into the nitty-gritty here of season. You might be into a couple areas for the last time of the year hunting. So if you got a camera there, snag that puppy if it's in some doe bedding or something, and try to get it back out to the edge and get it on a food source here, and let that thing just sit out there and freeze, and hopefully get some intel. And maybe you come back here after a good snow or some really cold temps and get some deer headed to a food source, and you can slip in there and snag one here late season. So
I really like to run cams that time of year, late season, on food source just to see what lives too.
Yeah.
See what made it through shotgun, rifle season, made it through the rut, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but for us, like, into November, only the diehards are still hunting.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. There's not very many people out there. People gave up. They're kind of over it. Maybe they've already killed a buck. Their freezer's full, whatever they got going on. But if you can find a scraggler out there, there's still definitely a chance to kill. So
I think a lot of people think it's cold out there, but really you only have to go out there for about 2.5 hours in the evening.
So if you have the gear, it ain't bad. It's just when you don't have the gear, that's when it's bad. I remember when I didn't have the gear, it was tough to motivate yourself to go. But
I think toughing out a late season sit in the evening is not that bad.
Yeah. I mean, I do it multiple. I hunt hard as hell in late season. Try to. So I don't have a problem with it at all. But I like it because there's not as many people out there. So, but that's something to think about. Don't give up. Still time. Still lots of season left. All right, we got the Badlands code.
Yep.
reach out if you need that Badlands code. It is late season, and the prior shoot would be pretty nice to have right now, or maybe some late season gear. Maybe need a beanie, maybe need some gloves, something. We can save you a little bit of money. You can get that little discount on a lifetime warranty product. So you think they're warranty my gloves since I cut the fingers out of them? I don't know what happened to these fingers, man.
Yeah.
Clean cut right across. All right, guys. Well, like I said, we hope you enjoyed this series. We're going to get into the last episode here. We love you guys. Hopefully we had a couple episodes in here where we jumped in with kills. Hopefully we had 4 episodes we had jumped in here with kills, but we'll be back at you normal coming up soon. And we got a lot of people that are wanting to come on, and we're going to make it fun, fresh, and kind of get off the tactic talk and just get back to kind of BS whitetail shit talking out here. So, all right, guys, here we go. All right, we got another special guest coming on with us. We actually recorded back-to-back episodes with this dude, so shout out to him for putting up with almost 2 hours of us in one night. But how you doing tonight, Justin?
Good. I'm glad to be on.
Yeah.
Like hanging out and BSing with you guys.
Yeah, we love chit-chatting with you, and
Get some inside scoops from us tonight for sure.
Get some inside scoops from us. There's only one other guy in the world that knows what we got going on right now.
Yeah, right.
Hey, man, I'm your silent partner.
It's like one guy at the archery shop and one guy that's like, I got these boys. They're out there. They don't even know what's going on. Oh, but yeah. So, like we said, we wanted to find the people that we respect the most that are just absolute stone cold killers to come on and talk about a buck that got away from them for some reason. So you're on the One That Got Away series. Just for the people that don't know you, tell them a little bit about yourself and your past hunting, and then we'll get right into the story.
I'm Justin Hollandsworth. I'm with Whitetail Addictions and Lone Wolf Custom Gear. I've been bow hunting ever since I was a kid, but I never killed my first Pope and Young animal until I think I was 20. I think I was 27 when I first killed my first Pope and Young, and now at 40, am I 46? I think I got, I don't know, probably 22, 23 that would gross score Pope and Young. I've never registered anything in the book. I don't think I've ever. To me, I've never killed anything worthy enough to go down that path, you know. But I'm just ate up with whitetails and just love bow hunting. It's all I do.
Well, like I said, you know, I think you did it a little bit humbly there. One of the most consistently killers that we know, you know, and that's why we wanted to have you on. Everybody can kill, just like me. Like, oh, you killed 190, you got me beat. Dude, I ain't got nobody beat. When you can consistently kill for years and years and years, that's when you got people beat. That's when I would rather kill for 10 years and shoot 190. If someone was like, you got to go on a 10-year streak to shoot another giant, I'm out. I'm out the book. Just let me shoot 10 140s. Yeah. That's what it's about, man. You want to get that rush, you draw them back, you want to make it happen, you want to get that track job, the recovery. That's the good shit. That's the good stuff we're out there for. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because you're just an absolute consistent killer. And that's something that a lot of people, it's hard to find.
I got some good advice, too, along the way. I remember years ago getting this advice, and it was, you know, don't get caught up in, you know, trying to kill, you know, 150, 160-inch deer every year. You know, start off, have some fun, kill some deer, you know, get experience under your belt and work your way up. And I remember, like, you know, killing some small deer, stuff like that, growing up and everything else. And then, like I said, I don't think I killed my first gross Pope and Young animal wasn't until I was 27. But I had some years in there too that, you know, I was, you know, probably more so trying to get my career and all that kind of stuff kind of in line more than I was so much of the hunting part of it. And then once I got a taste of that first, you know, deer that would score over that, and I know everybody says, I don't care about score. Well, whatever, I do. I do want to kill.
I like big deer, you know.
I do too. You know, I look at trail cameras. You know, we all look at trail cam pictures and we're all like guessing, oh, what's this thing going to score? We're all throwing our guesses out there and stuff like that. Yeah, I run a tape on my deer when I get them down because I want to see if I was close or, you know, if I was or I wasn't close. And
I'll tell you, if you start doing that, you'll be way better on the trail cam picks. Because we are at like
10 to 12 inches.
Yeah, 10 to 15 inches every buck. And then we started scoring. One night we scored every deer we ever shot. And then now we kill a deer, we're damn near right on the money of what it is. Like, we got it really good. And that 10, 12 inches, we're always like a little like, it's probably smaller than we think. So we're going to go 10 inches less than what we think it is.
And it's still funny to talk to, you know, just buddies, you know, and that might not have scored a lot of deer and they're still adding that 10 inches.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's the 155. I'm like,
It's funny too, because like, you know, TV and stuff like that is like made this score thing as far as, you know, like 140 inch deer is still a freaking big deer.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Now, do I target 140 inch deer anymore? No, but you know, like, cause I've killed, you know, some of those deer and I'm just trying to step up my game every year for a bigger caliber of animal. But like, you know, I'll tell anybody that's just getting into this, have some fun, shoot some deer, and play the game and set your goals every year for just something a little, you know, bigger every year. That makes it fun. It's like a competition, you know, with yourself, you know, to see if you can do it and see if you can hone your skills enough to get to that point. And that kind of trips my trigger. I really don't care what anybody shoots. I love seeing big deer. You know, if somebody shoots a giant deer, if you guys were to shoot a giant deer and send it to me, I love seeing that. Yeah. That's awesome. I get fired up over that kind of stuff. But I don't compete with you. You know, it's not like I'm competing against you or
no. I want to see everybody kill a deer, and then I want to know, how'd you do it, man? What'd you do?
Right.
What made it happen?
What's the secret sauce?
Yeah. What sauce you got going over there? You're hunting Illinois,
and
right?
That's
okay.
and that's the other thing too, is so many guys too just you gotta stay. I think it's so important to stay humble enough to be able to not think you're too far and above anyone or whatever, because I've heard some stuff from some guys that hadn't killed a whole lot of big deer and picked up some stuff, and I'm like, you know, never heard that before, and I've taken that to the field in the back of my mind and put it to use, and it's worked, and I still use it today. So, you know, I don't think you should leave any stone unturned, so to speak.
Yeah. Something we just said a couple episodes ago. It's one of the best hunters for knowledge is a farmer that don't even hunt. He's got hella whitetail knowledge, never drawed a bow back. You know?
Yeah.
But he knows what's going on at certain times of the year, and you say, hey, man, you see anything over here? You see any action? He might give you a little tidbit and be like, oh, yeah, this, like our lease. The lady's lived there for like 7 years. She's like, well, the whole 7 years I've been here, the spot that I've seen the biggest deer consecutively is right here. I'm like, perfect. We go there, hang a camera, boom, shoot her. I'm like, perfect. Yep. This is what we need right here. We should have talked to her a week ago, you know?
Yeah.
But, well, we had you on the podcast a little different than you're normally coming on to talk about a deer that you didn't get it done on for some reason. So go ahead and get into the story of the one that got away.
We could get into probably 20 of these, but we'll just talk about one. And probably the one that, I don't know, probably the one that's still like, just to think about it and just kind of that deer I had that deer dead so many times, it's not funny. So this was when we first learned about the deer, he was a 3-year-old, and as a 3-year-old, he was in the 150s, just a big clean, typical 10. And we picked up a shed from that deer that year, and he just looked like he just had the makings. He had the big, long fours, and just a big, huge 10-point frame, and didn't seem like he was going to get junk. He didn't seem like he was going to get a bunch of junk on him either. The following year, I killed a buck early. I killed a buck here in the first week of season, and I got out there and I started getting pictures out of cell cam of this deer pretty consistently on a scrape. And I got there late and I couldn't go in the first evening. And I slid in, got set up, and the deer, it was about probably 8:30. I had 2 small bucks come in. It's the only 2 deer I've seen all morning. And this is during late October. And they were down below me sparring. And they kind of pushed off to my right and kind of behind me. And I would look over from time to time and just listening to those 2 spar. And about the 3rd or 4th time that I turned around and looked over there, he's standing there. And he's standing at 25 yards. And I'm like, oh, shit. I got to get this bow in my hand. And then I got to turn. And I did not have a shooting lane in that spot over there. But I had a mock scrape that was set up in there. And that's where I was getting pictures of him. And that deer, he came through at 25 yards, and I could not, as much as I wanted to, there was nowhere I could squeeze a shot off. And then I thought, I was trying to stay patient in the moment too. So the deer hooked around, went back to his bed, didn't go to that scrape, hunted that deer, saw that deer one other time while I was there for those 4 or 5 days. Came back, hunted him hard again, couldn't get on him. Then during late season, I went out there, and the deer was still on the property, and he made it through the gun seasons and everything else. And I went out there, and this would have been my 3rd trip. And I get out there, the deer's he's running with 4 other bucks now during late season. And every time I set up on the deer, he would pop out on the other end. And I'm like, how am I going to get to this deer? And the access, and the other problem was the access was so limited, and there was snow on the ground too now. And I had to cross big open fields to get there. So this is a funny story that you guys would probably get a kick out of. So I'm in a hotel room and wake up, and this would have been 2018. And you guys in Illinois, you guys get just absolutely dumped on with a big snowstorm in late season. And I mean a ton of snow. Well, I had my electric bike, and there was like, okay, there's no way I can ride this thing around anymore. This thing's done for on this trip. And I only had that evening left. And I was on the phone with Heath, and I told him, I was like, I got to get all the way back there. But my concern is that they're going to see me going across that field. And him and I come up with this, I don't even know where this came from, but we come up with this idea that I'm going to take the bed sheets from the hotel, and I'm going to drape these bed sheets over me because I'm walking across this big wide open field as white as can be, it's got a foot of
like
snow.
A ghost going in there, bro.
Well, I told him, I was like, I'm either looking, people are going to think either I look like a ghost or a Ku Klux Klan member.
Yeah.
This is not going to be good. So I said, we got to be careful of this because that's the last thing I want. So I hooked around that night because I knew, because it just, to me, the deer was coming out one side or the other of that field because he was seeing me somewhere. That's literally what I did. I literally cut the eyes out of that damn thing. No exaggeration.
Epic. Whatever it takes, man.
Walked all the way across that field, and I'm like, okay, I had a couple preset stands. One of them was on a fence row on this field. And the other one was like back in the woods. And I thought that he was bedding more back towards the woods, and I felt like I needed to get close to him. But then there was something that kept telling me too, like, nah, just go hunt the safe spot, go hunt the.
Oh no.
Oh, mid-story. Oh, there you go back.
I go in deep, go into that stand into the woods. Just as I'm entering or about to enter the woods, he walks by a cell cam that's on that fence row over there where I was going to go. And he's walking away from me. So I look at that and I'm like, and it's a long walk through a bunch of deep snow to get back there. I was a sweaty mess by the time I got back there. So I get in the stand. I'm completely discouraged. It's like, my last evening. So as the night goes on, I see a ton of deer. I had deer on me all night. I had these 6 does, and they were just kind of hanging around me all night and everything else. And then towards the end of the evening, I had a small buck come in to my left, and I'm left-handed. So he comes in on my bad side, even if it was a big deer. And then about 150-inch deer that we called Loppy, he's got this great big broken ear. He comes in, and I'm like, man, I should shoot that deer because he's an older buck. And then it just kind of like dawns on me. I was like, man, we called this deer High Rise, the one I was trying to kill. I'm like, that's that buck. High Rise been hanging around with that buck this whole late season. And I just slowly turned and looked over my shoulder, and he's standing back there at 20 yards on my bad side. And I got 6 does out in front of me here. I got those 2 bucks down below me here. And I'm like, how am I going to get my bow hooked up, stand up, because I'm going to have to stand up to turn around to shoot. Or do I just let this happen? That deer came down the hill. And anyways, finally just got to the point I was like, I got to make a move. I got to do something. So I drew and stood all in one motion and got cracked by that doe. And everything blew out of there. He didn't know why they left. And they left out of there. And I never got a crack at him the rest of the season because that was right at the tail end of the season. And I remember sitting there thinking, I was like, man, I should just call off work a couple more days. I should just burn up a couple more vacation days and get this deer killed. But I'd already made 3 trips out trying to kill that deer all season. And then my I guess my own guilt too of like, being away from work. More importantly, being away from, my wife and son. And I'm like, the guilt starts to, I was like, you've made 3 trips. Now you're just being selfish. Just give it up. So I drove home. So that March, we go out there, we pick up one side to him. So I'm like, okay, he's back. He's going to be back in there again and have a chance to hunt him. So I didn't get a chance to get back out there till it was the last week of October. And when I got back out there, he was kind of MIA off the farm. I got pictures of him in the early season, but that was kind of it. I went in, hunted a big open cut cornfield, and I could see a long ways from this point. And all I wanted to do, I figured if I could just lay eyes on him, then I could make a move. Then I could start to play the game and make my moves accordingly to what he was doing. I hunted that spot in an evening, left all my stuff in that tree, and hunted a deer. To a stand that we have in a timber up on this ridge. So I get up there, hunted for I don't know, till probably noon or so. Maybe it was closer to 1. And I had a cell cam on a small little clover plot, and he walked across that clover plot at 1:30. I pulled my phone out at one point, and I'm like, oh, God, he's all the way over there. I'm like, he's back in here, but he's all the way over there. So I literally, it'd probably been funny to watch how fast I was going down that tree to get back to my bike, to get back over to that other side, because I'm like, I'm just going to go over there and try to cut him off tonight, because he's going to come back out, because I thought he was in this hedge thicket, and I thought he was going to come back out. Hunted him, didn't see him that night. A few days later, I went in and just scouted this whole spot out. I'm like, I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to burn it up and just put some boots on the ground. And I cut a big track. And that deer, he kind of had a real recognizable track, the way that it was shaped. I'm like, man, that's got to be him. He's got to be coming out over here. And there was a fence gap opening coming off the neighbors on the back side of this place. And with the wind, the way that it was for that evening, I'm like, you know what? I'd like to be over here on this other side. And this is part of a mistake that I made on this deer. Instead of not following my gut, not following that hunch, which I think is just so important. It's our natural instinct as a hunter to have that. And when you don't follow it 9 times out of 10, I believe that you probably cost yourself a deer. And 100%, that cost me that deer that night. The tree that I would have been on, instead of going and hunting right off that trail where that deer would have came out at 10 yards, I hunted back hoping he would come out, then work his way out, because I was too worried about what the wind was doing. And I was too worried about what the other deer might, and how that might affect them and then blow my opportunities. You got to take gambles to kill big deer. And I didn't that night. And the tree that I knew I shouldn't have been on, he came right out at 10 yards under it. He came out, worked a scrape on the opposite end of the field. And when I say opposite end of the field, he's only 80 yards when he comes out. So it wasn't like I was 200 yards from the deer or something like that. I mean, it's a small field. And he goes down and he works some scrapes. He worked, and then he worked every doe in that field that night. And we're talking about 180-inch typical. Just a stud. I mean, just clean and the footage, I'll send you guys some video clips of this. And it just an awesome deer. He worked those does on every field edge and corner of that field except the corner I was setting it. At one point, he was pushing does down to me, and one of the does double backed, and he followed her. So they cleared out of there. went in, hunted the deer again that night or that morning, left everything in the tree because I still had the same wind. Because I'm real good about that. I'll leave everything, my bow, everything, and just I think it makes it so easy just for that setup in the morning. Didn't seem that night. I set up on the other end of the field because the wind switched. And this was the thing that I was doing. I was so worried about hunting like this perfect wind, even though I know better at times. I still do. I still revert back to these idiotic things that some of us do at times. And instead of going over and taking the gamble and hunting a kind of, I wouldn't say a bad wind, but something that you have a much better chance of getting cracked on, I didn't. So I played it safe. He comes out again. I even thought about setting up over there. Comes out on a doe. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Now he's gonna come out over there and come out last light, and she fed and he just followed her around like a puppy. So they go all the way down into this point and they go in at last light. I come back the next morning, and in the morning I was worried that they were going to be in that field. So I slid in on the back side of this fence row and came up, got set up that morning, and there was a big snowstorm blowing in, and it was raining that morning when I got in there. And then it changed over to ice, and then later turned over to sleet. And there was like 25 and 35 mile an hour winds. I mean, it was rocking up there. There was 2 small bucks that came out, and they started to go down into that little cut where they went in earlier. And I thought they're going to go down there and bump those 2. Sure shit, here comes this doe flying out of there. And I'm like, man, I wonder if that's that doe. And about that time, the 2 small bucks come out chasing her, and he comes following. And I mean, it sounded like trees crashing in there. I mean, they were just going nuts, chasing her all over. And it got quiet for about 10 minutes. And over to my right-hand side, here they come. At Mach 1, here they come. And I'm like, oh shit. And I knew as soon as she popped out, I just drew my bow because I already had my bow in my hand. I just drew my bow because I'm like, I know they're coming. And I could not stop. They passed by me at 15 yards. I could not stop that deer for nothing. So now we're up to 3 encounters with that deer inside of 25 yards. I can't get him killed. I mean, it's just like the deer he just had my number. Goes back in. They're crashing all over. I sat there probably way longer than I should have because that tree was completely ice, and trying to get down it. I remember trying to get down it, and I was like, I'm going to take my safety harness and like as I go down, like making sure like I'm tied off to something because it was a stand that we had in there for a long time. And it was the old lone wolf sticks that were kind of they're real tight up against the tree with the short little pegs. Mm-hmm. And man, I was worried about falling out of that thing coming out of there that night and, or that morning. And I went back in and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go for broke because I'm running out of time. And I went down in there and I'm like, yeah, I know they're down in here somewhere. I'm going to go as far as I think I can go without taking too much of a gamble. And I got in there so far and I bumped them. I bumped him and that doe. They were laying right next to the creek. I made that turn. They were laying like right on like a little island that jogged out on the creek. Right there. It was an odd spot for them, and they just bailed out of there. And I remember like, God, you got to be kidding me, man. So I think, back about hunting that deer and just all the things that I did. And I was excited. Even we went back out there in March and we picked up both sides of that deer, and he was low 180s. And I'm like, yes, he's going to be back in here. This is going to be awesome. The deer disappeared. I've never seen a deer since. No idea what happened to the deer. I mean, I know that
Must be having service issues.
Come on.
You just have to. Luckily, you got plenty of time to cut and slide. There he goes.
to follow it and make it happen.
We lost you for about a minute. You said that you found his sheds, and then we lost you for about a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead and say, you found his sheds, and then cut right back into it.
So we found his sheds that year, and I thought, here we go. We're going to be right back in the game with this deer. And, now I'm thinking, gosh, if he just puts on 10 inches, I mean, he could be 190-inch typical. I mean, they're a 200-inch typical, world-class kind of deer. And I was so fired up to hunt that deer, and he literally fell off the face of the earth. He lived through that. He made it through that season for us to be able to pick up his sheds. And then he was coming. I mean, and still to this day, he's never showed back up. So I don't know what happened to that deer, but to me, there's a deer that, I mean, that got away that, man, that one hurt. That one, I had so much fun playing the game with that deer. I mean, to me, that was some of the most fun that I've ever had hunting a deer, and I never got the deer. I mean, that to me, like, and I guess if the one thing you can learn, or the one thing that I learned anyways, is, we're all natural born killers. We're all hunters. I mean, we have this instinct about us. And I think the biggest thing that sometimes is when you get a gut feeling, you need to act on it. And don't talk yourself out of something. If you think that's the tree, but I don't want to do that because that's not, the safe route. If I go back over here, then at least that way I won't booger him. If he comes out, does this or that. If your gut feeling is to get into that one tree right there, which I had that feeling numerous times on that deer, I should have acted on it instead of trying to play the safe route, because that's why he beat me.
Got to take risks to kill big deer. That's what you said, towards the end of the beginning of the episode there, and I believe that, man. But I mean, that many encounters, that many close, to have him draw dead to rights, 15 yards, and him not to stop, and then the damn does are always getting us, man. Mm-hmm. They're always getting us on, you're drawing. I've had that happen where a doe, you got him right there, the buck's dead, and then luckily mine, the doe spooked and he ran out, and I was still able to get a shot on him. But it's really hard to watch 6 different deer at the same time when you're trying to shoot one of them. So I had a deer that I called Homeboy, did the same thing. I had does real close, and I drew on him, and she spooked, and he spooked, and then he ran out, but he didn't want to lose his doe. So the doe ran the opposite direction, and he was wanting to come that way. So he just stood out there, quartered away, and I was able to get one in him. But I had to hold my bow for like a minute. The longest, people say a minute, but you hold your bow for a minute, you know what you feels like. You're like, holy smokes.
A minute's a long time holding the bow.
It was on my knee down. I wasn't even on the peep. I'm just holding it. The whole time I'm like, well, this is over. What was funny was there was a really nice 8-pointer right here that didn't do anything, was still browsing. So I was like, man, I could kill this 8-pointer, but I really want to kill this one over here. So I was like, if he spooks, I'm going to let my bow down, then I'm going to kill this one. That was my game plan. So I had a backup. I had the backup going on. But, yeah, sounds like, I mean, there's really nothing you can really do it. And I hate when a deer just ghosts us. Like, got all this history with this, you're putting the pieces together, and then, like, we had a buck we called TT, and just an absolute beautiful deer, and he was there, we hunted him, then he was there the next year, and then we seen one buck that got hit by a car that had a head cut off, when we made a joke that it was him, and then now he's gone. And you're like, well, was that him? Did someone kill him? Like,
oh yeah.
And that was like a 170 class, high 165 class deer. The best velvet pictures we've ever had of a deer, that deer, come through back hard horn, you know, and you're just like, you get emotionally attached to these deer. You want to figure them out. That's the beauty of hunting. When you get to the stage of after you've killed a couple, you want to, like, physically beat that deer. And that's why I got so much respect for you. I feel like in the rut, yeah, you beat them. But if you can beat them in the first 15 days of season, you beat that sucker. Like, that is the putting the pieces together. You legitimately beat that thing. And then after that, late season, I still feel like there's a draw for food that they don't have early season. They have to get up earlier when it's cold. So you still beat the deer, but it's not like that first 15 days where he doesn't have to move. He doesn't have to do anything. You just literally completely plucked him out. You know, you didn't just go out there and he came by or he was going to food or whatever. So that's
where you're just putting all the odds in your favor. You're stacking everything in your favor for the one hunt. And you're just waiting to seize that moment. And I think that takes time. I think it takes experience. I think it takes patience as you get older, to, learn this, say, oh, yeah, I want to go in there and hunt that deer, and just be so eager to get in there. But, that's where you just know that I'm going to set back. I'm going to wait for this to develop even more, and to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm going to go in and I got the best chance I possibly can to kill that animal, because I can honestly say that most of the time during the early season, and I kind of joke, it's kind of more of a joke. I mean, I'm not serious, but then again, in my mind, I'm like, no, I'm serious. I am killing this deer tonight. Tonight, this is happening.
You're willing it to
like
happen.
This,
yeah.
And I think just having that confidence in your setup and how you're strategically planning that whole situation, and when you can be patient enough to set back and wait for some things to align, to me, there's nothing sweeter. I love, knocking one down, early in the season. I will say though, sometimes I'm like, season goes along and then all of a sudden some other big deer show up. God dang, wish I had a tag,
yeah. 2
now
bucks
I got a
stay
12-year-old
here, luckily. So
I got a 12-year-old son now, so I'm like, okay, well, and he shot his first one last year, and I was like, I took him over to a farm last year, and we had a couple pretty good deer over there, and he had never shot a deer period before, and he had a doe come in, a couple does come in at first, and I said, dude, you can shoot one if you want, like, he's like, no, I want to wait on a buck. I was like, okay. So then two small bucks started working away across the field that night, and I didn't know what he's going to do. I was like, are you going to shoot one? You want to shoot one of these bucks? And because the way he was talking earlier and there, I was like, I think he wanted to hold out. Like, I was like, man, I hope I didn't ruin him. Like, because he just sees, dad shooting big deer, and I didn't want him to, I wanted him to shoot a doe or just a dink or something, something like that. And once that deer got in there, it was just a little 4-point, and he was like, no, I'm shooting him. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
He shoots that deer, And as soon as he shoots that deer, I turn and I look down the fence row at 60 yards, and there's a 150-inch 8 standing there.
Oh God.
And I said, Mason, look at this big buck. And he's like, oh, Dad, we should have waited. And I'm like, nah, you shouldn't have waited. You shot the right deer.
Yeah, you shot the right.
I said,
deer,
we'll get him next year. You can shoot him once you get a couple under your belt.
Yeah.
But and then he was ready to jump through the window, go get his deer. I'm like, just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait. Hold on.
We gotta wait a little.
Hold
bit
on.
here. All right,
But-
man. Well, we'll wrap it up here. I appreciate you coming on for 2 episodes and spending a couple hours with us here. I know that the listeners can take some good value from this. You know, go with your gut. That's a super solid message, and I guarantee you that. I was thinking about just stuff with us where we actually went with our gut, and it's like, yep. And then I was thinking about the time I messed up on chaos. I was like, I need to go one stand deeper. Didn't go on the mobile cam while I'm out there hunting, going right past that stand. You're like, damn it. You know, like you said, you have some kind of instinct where you have an idea, just like when we were going to go in on the ground last year. The gut feeling was, man, we just need to go back in there. We never went. You know, it could have been a game changer to go in there, and maybe we would have picked up some sign on the way in, or maybe we would have, you know, seen the deer or seen a deer make a move. So that's a great lesson.
You have to take chances to kill big deer. And if you don't, you're not going to fill as many tags as you're going to eat. I mean, I just truly believe that if, you know, you got to take some gambles, and I'm still, and I think all of us kind of do this even now. Like, there's still times where I revert back into those old habits at times. And then I'm like, quit it, you know, like, quit doing that. Why you like, this is everything, you know, these are the things that you don't do, and the things that the things that I'm talking to you guys about, you know, and I'll still revert back to that stuff sometimes, but take some risk and follow your gut. And I think you'll definitely get a lot more cracks at big deer for sure.
All right. Well, that's a perfect way to end it, man. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.